Well, so rationalizations, we're human. Humans resist change. We're creatures of habit. We love habit and tradition. It's very important to us. And we don't like those systems disrupted, right? But there's places in our lives where our values and our actions are at odds, are conflicted. And so we put, kind of psychologically, we go to rationalizations to soothe our psyche and make us feel more comfortable, make it all make sense, these conflicts. So you can feel that you love animals, you don't want to see animals hurt, but you can still eat dead animals. It's such a blatant contradiction, knowing that they suffered, knowing what they endured, on some level, right? Especially if it's a dead animal. So I think humane labels comfort us, and the animal products, the animal product producers.
Welcome to the Better Life for Animals podcast, where we amplify the voices of animal advocates, sanctuaries, and changemakers working toward a kinder, more compassionate world. Through powerful stories and expert insights, we shine a light on the efforts to rescue, protect, and advocate for animals. Be sure to subscribe wherever you're watching or listening. Every follower helps us reach more people. And support animal sanctuaries. Enjoy the conversation.
Today's guest is Hope Bohanec, a passionate and longtime animal advocate with over 30 years of experience in activism. Hope is the founder and executive director of Compassionate Living and has spent her career working with organizations like United Poultry Concerns and In Defense of Animals. She's the author of The Ultimate Betrayal and The Humane Hoax, and is co-founder of the Humane Hoax Project and the Ahisma Living Project. From grassroots campaigns in the 1990s to organizing national conferences and launching her own podcast, Hope for the Animals, Hope continues to be a leading voice in the fight for a kinder world for animals. Hope, welcome to the podcast. It's such a pleasure and honor to have you.
Thank you, Cheryl. It's wonderful to be here.
There's so many places we could start. I'm a huge fan, but I have been digging into the Humane Hoax, and I thought it's such a timely, difficult, and important book. How's that? And I thought we would start there. Tell me, what motivated you to write the Humane Hoax? And so let's talk about some of the key myths about humane animal agriculture and what does it seek to dismantle.
Sure. Well, so as you mentioned, I've been doing this a long time. I've been vegan myself for 35 years. And I saw the trajectory of humane labeling happening in real time, right? So 30 years ago, we didn't see the labels that we're seeing now. And as animal activists and advocates and vegans, we're doing the good work of exposing, the horrible things that happen to animals. We started seeing labels coming out like, humane and cage-free came out about 15 or so years ago. And I thought that this was an interesting, development in the movement and in animal agriculture, in the product labeling. And I was curious as to, what does this mean? Is it really better for animals? So I started doing deep dives into researching it. I actually went to the farms myself in Sonoma County. I went to numerous farms that were conventional, as well as all of the different labelings, and just tried to figure it out myself. And, I thought that going into it, I thought I was going to say things like, because I started writing articles and things like that. I thought I was going to say things like, well, cage-free's better, but going vegan's best. Or, this label, that label is a little better, but, we should still go vegan. That is not what I found, unfortunately. That's not what I discovered. And it led me to write my first book, The Ultimate Betrayal, which was the very first book ever written about the subject of humane washing. And what I found is that there are inherent cruelties in animal agriculture that are basically, you cannot eliminate these things and still have a profitable product, right? They couldn't compete. No farmer could compete if they eliminated all of these horrible things that happen to animals through the just standard practice of animal agriculture. Things like separating families, taking away the babies right at birth in the dairy industry, having the chicks in the egg industry hatched in metal drawers in a hatchery without a mother hen, a loving mother. So separation of families, painful body mutilations like castration, dehorning, debeaking, all these terrible things that happen without anesthesia. These are still happening with all the labels that you see. And slaughter at a very young age. They still go to slaughter at a very, very young age. They get very little life. So all these things led me to realize that there is that this is a hoax. That's why I call it the humane hoax. That these labels mean very little, if anything at all, and usually it's about the same. And in some instances, it can actually even be worse. So, yeah, that's the reality. And that's why I wrote The Ultimate Betrayal. And then the follow-up book, my anthology, The Humane Hoax, that just came out more recently, it has 18 contributing authors, so numerous different voices of academics, animal rescuers, people that are speaking about this now. Now more and more people are speaking out about these humane labels and that they're not what people think they are. So I gathered those voices in my latest book, The Humane Hoax. So now I've have two books on the subject.
On the one hand, it seems that we're winning because they have to come up with these ploys. But on the other hand, people are just so easily swayed. They're like, oh, good, cage free. Oh, good. And they just drop it, So I really think these are important works that you've done. And well, let's talk also a little bit about the term greenwashing.
Sure. And that's, it's interesting that you say that because it's true. I think that, people, they want to believe that it's true, of course. And people don't want animals to suffer. So that's a good thing. I mean, we kind of have that on our side, right? That the majority of people, they don't want to see animals suffer. So they want to believe these labels. And so that's why it's even more important for us to get this information out so that they know. But with greenwashing, we're really seeing the direct results of climate disruption everywhere on Earth. I mean, it is becoming undeniable now just from the massive disruption. And I don't like to use the term natural disaster because this is not really any more natural disasters. They are man-made disasters from our climate change and the things that we have done to create this. And so, the bigger picture is that even according to the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency, as well as numerous environmental NGOs and others, animal agriculture is a huge cause of climate disruption, massive energy consumption, deforestation, loss of biodiversity, habitat species, water pollution, air pollution. It goes on, right?
Right.
And most all food production has some degree of impact, right? But meat, dairy, and eggs contribute so much more when you compare to plant farming. So what do we do about that? Well, the industry is they've come up with solutions for you, and that is all these sustainable labels that we're seeing. We're seeing labels like organic and free range and sustainable, even as a label. And some of them are just kind of straight greenwashing. There's just no significant change. There's no change in the process on the farm. No change in what they're doing. They're just slapping a label on it.
Right.
Some, they can have some mitigation that they are working with and trying to do. However, again, if you still compare to plant farming, I mean, that's the thing, we have to do comparisons, right? So even if, there's a beef company that's doing a little better, well, beef is so impactful that just a little better isn't good enough at this point in time. We are facing unprecedented disaster if we don't do something quickly, right? And so
Right.
plants have so much less impact. But even with, so some are better, some are about the same. But again, and I mentioned this before, some can be even worse. And grass-fed beef is actually one of those examples.
Right.
Because, we're finding now that grass-fed beef can produce 50 to 60% more greenhouse gas emissions than, their grain-eating cousins, the conventional. More water is wasted because they're moving around more, drinking more water. So there's numerous studies now out of Oxford and Harvard and Washington State that compare conventional feedlot cows to grass-fed cows. And again, they're finding that the grass-fed product requires more land, more water, more fossil fuels, and produces more greenhouse gases. So again, here's an example where it can actually be even worse, even though this is the reason people are reaching for that grass-fed label and these sustainable labels, is they think that it's better. So, that's greenwashing. Just having billions of farmed animals alive, no matter how they're raised, wastes tons of resources and water, causes pollution. So, these sustainable labels, we really have to realize that they mean very little, if nothing at all.
And what I always go back to, Hope, which is that I'm not an expert on any of these topics, except that I'm very sure all of it is cruel.
Yeah.
And
that's
that's
right.
just takes it right down to the basics for me.
Yeah, that's right. The bottom line, those animals are going to suffer and die. And why? Why should we have that on our conscience? We can stop that by just going vegan.
That is right.
Yeah.
And I do it all day, every day, and I'm very healthy, and I love my food, and it's not a difficult experience, as you know.
Yeah.
We hope to have others join our cause, especially as things are falling apart. As you said, it's like, look what happened in Texas. How many vegans are we going to get out of that group? Or, it's in the 90s in Montana right now. Those things are happening as a consequence of what we're talking about today. And yet, are people making that connection is what I'm asking.
Yeah, that's the hard part. It really is. It's when with like let's say emissions from a car. It's a lot easier to see, right? You can see the gas going into the car, you see emissions coming out the other end. So fossil fuels connection to driving equals bad. So it's easier to see. But with animal products, you've got a whatever meat wrapped in plastic, you don't see the connection to the Texas floods, or it was 106 degrees on the index, the heat index, when I was talking to my dad yesterday in Tennessee. So people, they don't see these connections. It's harder to see these connections because of the meat, dairy, and eggs kind of being separated out, right? So that's our job, is to show and try to educate on how there is so much connection there and how you can reduce your impact so greatly by leaving animal products off your plate. Yeah.
Right. Your book goes over so many tragic and beautiful stories. And I'm wondering if you have one that really pulls at your heartstrings that you would like to share about that powerful connection between, these so-called humane labels.
Yeah, I like I said, for my first book, researching my first book, I went out to numerous farms. I went out to farms that had these different labels, had humane labels on them, and tried to see what I could see. Now, I was lucky that this was happening, several years ago, because at that point, you could kind of just walk onto the farms and you could talk to the people that were working there and I could take pictures. I did all that. Because now a lot of people are doing that, it's much harder to do that now. These places are more like fortresses and they've got the barbed wire and chain link fence, and you're not able to get on these facilities as much. So I was very lucky to be able to do that research and have this knowledge. And now we really rely on the undercover investigators, which are brave and amazing and bring out incredible footage. So I'm grateful for the work they do. But so I went on to these farms. One that I can remember that really opened my eyes to free range or pasture raised. I went to a facility, and when it's a cage-free facility, it's much harder to see because I was able to kind of look in the slats between like the barn, the wooden slats, because in cage-free, it's just a big windowless warehouse. I mean, they just are all on the floor on what's called floor systems. Thousands of birds crammed into these buildings. They're on top of each other. They're breathing the ammonia of the waste in there. They are, some get injured and are unable to get to food and water and just lay there and suffer. It's horrible. Cage-free is awful. So a lot of people think, well, free range must be better. Free range or pasture raised, Well, I went to a free range facility that I had egg. They were producing eggs with the labels that said free range and pasture raised. And there was this small, it was maybe like 10 by 10 foot outdoor area. And it had just rained, I think maybe the day before, recently. And it was just this mud puddle, like just full of mud. And these birds were just kind of crammed out there, and they, looked miserable, really. They were covered in mud. They didn't have anywhere to go but on top of each other. They were just really rubbing up against each other. And the saddest part was that all around them, outside of the chain link fence that was holding them in, was grass, this beautiful green grass. And you could see that they were trying to peck at the grass through the chain link fence. Like their little heads were trying to poke out and trying to get to that grass. All they had was mud. So, these labels are so unregulated, so they just have so little oversight. There's no on-site inspection. The only one of the labels that has some on-site inspection is organic, but that's more for the environmental aspects and not necessarily for the ethical. And this could have been an organic farm. That is still allowed. With organic doesn't mean that they have to have an actual real space that is going to benefit them and make their lives worth living. It's very sad. I also saw at a dairy farms are just as bad. I saw a mama cow with a hurt leg. She had a injury on a back leg, and her leg was swollen maybe 3 times its normal size, and she was limping her way across this dirt area trying to get to the trough of water. It was so sad to see. So you see injured animals, you see, this was I believe, organic dairy, that it had some humane label on it. So, these labels are more for the comfort of the consumer rather than the comfort of the animals. So it's very sad. Yeah.
Very sad.
You're listening to Better Life for Animals podcast. Our mission is to amplify the voices of animal advocates, sanctuaries, and changemakers working toward a kinder, more compassionate world. But we can't do it alone. We need your help. First of all, go ahead and subscribe to this channel wherever you're watching or listening. And then get involved by visiting betterlifeforanimals.com. That's betterlifeforanimals.com. Be sure to check out our blog, learn more about incredible sanctuaries, and explore our book section, where 100% of net proceeds from book sales are donated to sanctuaries. Every action you take helps to make a difference. And remember, subscribe to this channel. And now, back to the show.
If you're just joining us, we're speaking with Hope Bohanec of Compassionate Living, and this is Better Life for Animals. Hope, what role do you think spiritual or ethical rationalizations play in maintaining harmful animal agriculture?
Well, so rationalizations, we're human. Humans resist change. We're creatures of habit. We love habit and tradition. It's very important to us. And we don't like those systems disrupted, right? But there's places in our lives where our values and our actions are at odds, are conflicted. And so we put, kind of psychologically, we go to rationalizations to soothe our psyche and make us feel more comfortable, make it all make sense, these conflicts. So you can feel that you love animals, you don't want to see animals hurt, but you can still eat dead animals. It's such a blatant contradiction, knowing that they suffered, knowing what they endured on some level, right? Especially if it's a dead animal. So I think humane labels comfort us, and the animal products, the animal product producers, the marketers, they know this, right? They know that we're being comforted by these labels. And there's a lot of places in our lives where we have to make compromises that we just don't feel good about, right? Just living in a modern world, there are environmental impacts that are unavoidable. You can have a lifetime reducing your impact, trying to reduce your impact. I'm doing that now, right? In my kitchen, trying to reduce the plastics and all of that things, all those kinds of things. But with vegan, this is what I love so much about being vegan, is that you can avoid all animal products, and you've made a huge impact on reducing suffering, a direct impact on helping reduce the suffering of farmed animals. We can never really be 100% cruelty free, 100% free of causing suffering. It's unavoidable. However, being vegan, it's about as close as you can get. You're about 99% there. And, so much, when there's so much damage that we're doing to the world, so we have so little control over our impact. Vegan is a way that we can have that control, really take back kind of consumer control and significantly reduce our own impact on animals, on the planet. It has such an impact with the environment as well. People go out of their way to reduce plastics, and I'm on board with that. I totally agree with that. I want that to happen as well. However, going vegan can have so much more impact. You're actually reducing your impact so much more. So that's why I love being vegan. I think that it's a way to kind of eliminate all those rationalizations. You don't need those rationalizations anymore. Now you are living your ethics, as Food Empowerment Project says, you're eating your ethics. Right. You're able to be in line with your own values of not wanting to see animals suffer.
I was watching a documentary last week, and it was talking about things like the plastics that we're all trying to avoid. And as you said, absolutely we should, but that most of the plastic in the oceans is actually coming from the consequences of fishing itself, of all those nets that are pulling out all those poor fishes.
Yeah.
And I have to think about what you said about organic, and I have several friends who are very proud organic eaters, which that's great, but they're still eating chicken and fish and eggs. And I just look at them because I'm thinking, do you know what went into that chicken or that fish, or the dirt and the waste and the antibiotics, and then we go to the cruelty. So sometimes that word just makes people feel better. But I appreciate what you said. It's like, I can't do much, but by not participating, by choosing what I'm eating, I'm making that difference. And if we all did that, it would just be a different place. And I think I know we both hope we're going to get there.
Yeah.
And I love the work that you do with compassionate living. And I know that you work, with these very principles on how do we change hearts and minds when it comes to building a more compassionate world. What have you found to be the most successful in getting someone to go, you're right. I hadn't thought of that.
Well, we're all trying to find that, right? We all want
Yes,
that perfect thing to say, that perfect way to present it. We're doing a lot of research goes into that, and I try to keep up on that research so that I can alter my language and my approach to be, what we think is going to be most effective. It can be challenging for sure. But compassionate living, one of my philosophies and one of the reasons why I really wanted to start my own nonprofit is that I felt that it's really important for us to change who we are, not just what we do, right? To change on a cultural level, to create cultural veganism, so that it's not just habits, it's not just a grocery list of what to avoid, what to eat, what to not. That approach concerns me. That approach makes me feel that we could so easily slip back into eating animals if it's just habit, right? We can things change all the time. But if something is built into the culture, if you have an identity as a vegan, as a compassionate person, as someone who doesn't harm animals, then that, I think, is more sustainable, will last longer, will grow the movement, right? And so for me, I really feel that grassroots education and outreach are very important, both online and in person. And Compassionate Living we do both online outreach with our webinars and also in person with our Veg Fests. I organize the Sonoma County Veg Fest as well as the Eugene Vegan Fest now.
I've heard wonderful things about that, by the way. I hear it was a major sellout. Congratulations.
Yes,
Makes me happy to hear that.
Yeah. I moved to Eugene, Oregon, and it's been wonderful fun to connect with all the community here that are really excited about getting more vegan education going. So that's kind of my philosophy around compassionate living is just trying to change who we are as a culture, what we prioritize, what we care about, and showing that vegan goes beyond just a diet. That veganism is a lifestyle, a philosophy. It's something that, and also aligns with everyone's values. Everyone already feels, most everyone already feels that they don't want to hurt animals. They want to live a compassionate life. This just brings that all into alignment.
And I love how you have a community, because vegans and non-vegans alike, we all need community in order to feel like we're not alone in this. And I think that's where your Ahisma Living Circle really plays in nicely, just talking about those more elevated natures of us, the kindness, the nonviolence. And I know when I've listened to you, I have left the call feeling elevated and not alone,
Wonderful.
Because you're right. I think that we all, there's a part of all of us that's compassionate. I think we started that way, and, just different factions kind of chip away at that, unfortunately, but that we can always get back to that core. Tell us about your Ahisma Living Circle.
So it's Ahimsa.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. Ahimsa, the Ahimsa Living Circle. Yeah, it's not a common word, not one we're familiar with. And that's what I'm trying to do is bring it into the world. So the Ahimsa Living Circle, we're exploring veganism as a spiritual path or spiritual expression, people that are drawn to spirituality. But it happens so often that your spiritual communities, they'll be very in line as far as, wanting to be compassionate towards people. but it doesn't extend to animals so often. And even though they may talk about having compassion for animals, you go to the gathering and they're talking about compassion to humans, but often it doesn't extend to animals. And you'll go to the fellowship afterward and meet people, and they're eating animal products. And it just can be very heartbreaking to realize that I see veganism as a spiritual expression, of nonviolence. And that's where ahimsa comes in. So ahimsa is a Sanskrit term that means nonviolence or non-harming in the Dharma traditions, which are the Eastern philosophy traditions out of India. Hinduism, Buddhism are the ones we're more familiar with. Jainism is another. The Jains are a wonderful old ancient tradition, and their highest principle, their most important principle is ahimsa, nonviolence. And there's just so much to dig into, so much to explore there around being nonviolent in everything that we do, in our thoughts, in our actions, and how that connects to living a more spiritual life, a kind life, a life full of love for the world, love for this planet, love for all animals and all beings on this planet. So the Ahimsa Living Circle is every second Saturday of the month. We gather online. It's at, I believe, 10 a.m. Pacific time, so 1 p.m. Eastern time. And for anyone that wants to join, you can just register, and we discuss these things.
Very good. I've attended, and I find them to be so rejuvenating. So you do so much, Hope. I mean, we could talk about, your various forms of activism, but I think we have. Clearly you're an educator. I don't know if you're much involved with legislative issues or not. Do you find yourself in the political realm ever?
No, and I have a lot of opinions about that.
Okay.
If you want to know. I guess what I'll say is, first of all, no one really knows what's going to be the most effective forms of activism, right? What are the most effective? We don't know. What's going to be most effective? I very much believe that we need all of it. We need every angle, everything from, protests in the street to grassroots education, to legislation, to corporate campaigns. I think that all these things should exist. But right now I feel that we're getting a little out of balance as a movement, getting a lot out of balance as a movement. And that what has been a very grassroots movement is turning now into a movement of animal welfare more than animal rights or animal liberation. Animal welfare campaigns being more like cage-free campaigns, or, getting larger cages, or, a little bit better conditions for animals that don't really pan out to be anything better for the animals, truly. We're putting a lot of our activist time and energy and resources and money, and really the jobs that are available now for animal rights, most of them are in welfare campaigns and corporate campaigns. So I don't think that these things shouldn't exist. I think they're a little out of balance. I think that we need more emphasis on the grassroots, on education, and again, on creating that vegan culture, because that's what's going to support legislative moves. That's what's going to support changes in the industry, right? We have to have people understanding the issue and to go vegan, be vegan, to be able to move ourselves in the right direction. I'm concerned that these efforts, starting at this point in our trajectory of the movement, are just going to lull people into complacency, and people will feel that, oh, well, I can just buy the cage-free eggs and everything's fine and the hens are happy. And that is not the case at all. We've got to educate on why we can never exploit or commodify an animal in a humane way. It just can't be done. As long as we are using their bodies as a commodity,
Right.
it can't be done humanely.
No.
So we have to move towards a vegan community and a vegan world.
Well said. So what advice would you give to those who feel overwhelmed by just the enormity of this animal suffering, and what better steps they could take to create a better life for animals?
Well, there is a meme that kind of goes around that you see sometimes in the vegan circles that says, the only thing I regret is not going vegan sooner. And I think that's so true. I think that, every vegan you meet has that feeling. I don't know that anyone really doesn't feel that way, right? So just do it. Once you get used to what to buy, what to eat, and that can take time, and that can, for some people, it might be frustrating. It might, take some, and certainly don't beat yourself up if you slip up every now and again, but as long as you're moving towards being vegan and are vegan in your heart, and moving in that direction, once you get there, it's just going to be so much easier. And remembering, I think that vegan is not a diet. There's so many veganisms, and there can be, plant-based. That's kind of the vegan diet. But veganism, really, it goes beyond that grocery list. It goes into a philosophy of nonviolence, a philosophy of kindness and compassion for all living beings. You can embrace it on that level and really transform your life. I mean, it can be transformative to give your life purpose, meaning, to bring love into what is really a very cruel world right now, that we really need that more than ever right now, to make us all feel part of something larger, a movement for change, right? It's part of that social movement for change. And I think bringing social justice, bringing us into the social justice piece is so important. Bringing love and love and kindness into this violent and unkind world. Finding your vegan tribe is really important. Finding others that understand you, so you can get together and feel supported, and talk vegan and help make change together. And also I'll just say that I like to use the phrase live vegan instead of go vegan. I'm really trying to get this out there more, because of course our catchphrase has been go vegan, but that feels very finger waggy to me, like go vegan, I like live vegan so much better. We want to live free of suffering. We want the animals to live. So I like people to say live vegan.
I love that. Live vegan. Hope, it has just been wonderful having you on the show. I can't tell you how thankful I am to have you in our presence. It's just such an honor. You're such a voice of beauty and wisdom and kindness. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Cheryl. Thank you for starting this podcast. It's good to get more voices out there. Yeah,
that's what right. I thought. We need more, not less.
Yes.
So tell us how we can find you and how we can support you.
Well, my organization is Compassionate Living, and it's compassionate-living.org on the web. And that's a great place to connect with me. I also have my podcast, Hope for the Animals Podcast, and that's the URL, hopefortheanimalspodcast.org. So those are two great places to catch up with me.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Hope. And if any of you listening have enjoyed this show, please like and subscribe to us so that we can continue to create a better life for animals.
Thank you for joining us on the Better Life for Animals podcast. Together, we can create a world where all beings are treated with dignity, respect, and care. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe, rate, and review wherever you're listening. It helps us reach more people and spread awareness about the incredible work happening in animal sanctuaries. You can also share this episode with friends and fellow advocates to keep the conversation going. Until next time, keep speaking up, taking action, and making a difference for the animals.